This video will show you how to work with ListBox and the while loop. So what I have done here is created a form to which I added a couple of labels. We have a label, starting label, a label for a number of months. Okay. We also have a couple of text boxes, one for the starting balance and then another one for the number of months. So what's going to happen is the user is going to enter a value for starting balance and for number of months, and then we're going to show how that increases over the months. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use a list box, and underneath the list box I have added a couple buttons. So the list box is named ListBox results, and here is where we're going to show things. So first of all, if you just run this program and you see it the way it is right now, this is a list box, so it just allows you to select different items from a list. Now how do you add items to this list box? Well, you're gonna go and look for items, and there's actual collection. And then in this collection of items, you just add things on new lines that you want to appear on that list. Okay, so this is the list that is going to, list box that is going to, the default list in the list box. Okay, so this is one way to add to a list box. And then what we're going to do is we're going to also clear this text box, list box, and we're also going to fill it up with more items. Okay, so let's just go and do the things. First, when my exit button is clicked, what I want to do is I want to close the form. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say this close. Okay, so now when I run the program and I just hit the exit button, and then it closes. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I need to fix my clear button. So when it's clicked, we're going to clear the text of my text box, first text box for the starting balance, the other text box for the number of months, and then my list box results. So I want to clear all these three things. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm just going to write this following code, and that is going to clear the text of the text box to make it equal to just blank, nothing. Same thing with the text box for the number of months. And then the list box, we're going to say items.clear to clear everything that is in it. Okay, so now if I go in there and I run the program, now what I can do is I'm going to go in there, I'm going to say, okay, well, just clear. And that clears everything. If I had something in there, hitting the clear will clear those as well. Okay, now the next thing that I need to do is I need to calculate. So I'm going to go into the calculate button, and the calculation is going to be as follows. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to have some kind of a constant to save our interest rate somewhere conveniently. So I'm just going to say I'm going to create a variable interest rate, all capitals, to differentiate it that it is a constant. It's going to be a double because it's going to have some decimals after the digit and the dot, and then it's going to be a constant. And again, I have some comments on top of it explaining to you what this is. And again, comments do not affect your code, they're just explanation. So I'm making a constant for the interest rate. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm also going to create a couple of local variables. They're local variables because they're defined inside of this method, right? If they were defined outside of the method, then they would not be local, they'll be global. Okay, so these local variables are going to store the different values that we're going to play with. This value balance is actually going to come from the user. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an if, and we're going to try to check if the user's input can be a number, right? try parse. We're trying to see if this is really a number. If it is a number, great, we're going to put it inside of my variable balance. And if it is not a number, what we're going to do is we're going to generate an error message. But we're going to generate that error message in a second. We're not there yet. So we're going to attempt to read the starting balance, and if it's not a number, it will give us some kind of an error. And we're going to do the same thing. Now we're going to try to parse, or try to convert whatever the user entered into a number, right? So we're going to read the text. We're going to read the text from the text box number months, right? So that's going to be from here. We're reading this text, and if the text, whatever the user entered, actually is a number, and it is an integer or a whole number, then we're going to put it inside of my variable months. Okay, so now the next thing is, and this is examples of input validation for just specific input. Before, we were trying to do a try and catch on the whole block of code with multiple inputs, and this shows you how you can validate specific inputs. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a while loop, right? And the while loop is basically going to happen as many times as the value of months, right? So the variable count is going to start at 0, and in there we're going to write a while loop. So we're going to say while count is less than or equal to the number of months. Count initially starts at 1, so let's say they enter 5 months. That means this loop's going to happen 5 times. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to add, in this line of code here, we're telling it balance you are equal to your old value plus some interest on top of that, right? And the balance is already some kind of a value that the user entered, right? So let's say the balance is 10, then the new balance here is going to be equal to 10 plus 10 times 5%, okay? And we're going to be doing that for every month, and we're going to be showing these results in my ListBox results list box by saying items.add to do this, okay? And then at the end, at the bottom, I have a count is equal to count plus 1. So count is going to increase every time we go through this loop. So the loop is going to happen 5 times if the user entered 5, for example. Okay, so we're done with the while loop. Now what we need to do is we need to add a couple of elses. The first else I'm going to add is for this if right here, and that is going to be for the case, right? So this else is for the months, all right? So this one's going to be an else. So if it's good, they go in here. Otherwise, if it's bad, that means the user entered a bad value for months, which is probably not a value, or text maybe. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add another else, which is going to be for my other if on the top, right? This one was for the if, for the balance, attempting to get the balance. All right. Let me fix the indentation. Okay, so that's the last else is going to be right here. And that one is basically going to tell them that it's an invalid balance. So if this if here failed, that means that they didn't enter a number for their starting balance, and we're just going to send them to this error message here. So that in a nutshell is our program. Now let's see how it works. I'm going to go in there. There are build errors actually, so let's not run it with build errors. What are the build errors? And the reason why there is a problem is because we're missing one more of our curly brackets to close the namespace. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and add the curly bracket. That fixes it. Now there's no errors. We're going to run the program. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write 1000. And then here I am going to just not enter anything. Just hit the calculate button. Invalid value for months. Okay, let's give it a value for months. I want 5 months. Then I'm going to hit calculate. And there you go. There is your balance.